Open source won. Long gone are the days when open source was referred to as a cancer. Now it's near impossible to work on a software project that doesn't use open source software. However, all of this success exposed a problem that strikes at the very core of open source: sustainability. Today, the expectations on successful open source projects are ever increasing, and these demands can, in the best case, frustrate developers that maintain the projects, and in the worst case, cause some of them to burn out. That is not sustainable. So I'd like to take the next 6 minutes to introduce you to a simple way open source projects may choose to sustain themselves, and maybe, just maybe, by the end, you'll recommend this solution to all the open source projects you depend on. The open source maintenance fee is a small monthly payment required by participating open source projects. I'm sure you're thinking, wait, a payment? But open source is free. And I agree, yes, open source software is free. So before we continue, I want to define a few terms just to make sure we're on the same page. Then I'll try to answer the most important questions asked about the maintenance fee. First definition: open source software. Open source software is source code released under one of the many Open Source Initiative approved licenses. You know, licenses like BSD, MIT, GPL, and the MSRL. The key characteristics of all open source licenses is that they require the source code to be freely used, modified, and shared. But you're probably already familiar with this definition, so let's move to the second one: open source project. An open source project is the community of people that write, discuss, and use a particular piece of open source software. GitHub is a very popular location where open source projects hang out because it provides so many useful features to share and discuss open source software. All right, let me pause here for a moment for our visual learners out there. Consider what a common open source project looks like on GitHub. Okay, going back to the first definition, this is the open source software. And this, the issues, contributions, discussions, build process, security reports, releases, and any other content outside of GitHub are all part of the open source project. Which leads me to the final definition: open source maintainer. Maintainer is the title we give individuals who lead open source projects. They review code changes from contributors, they respond to bugs open in the issue tracker, they answer questions in discussion forums, and in most projects, maintainers contribute the vast majority of code. That's already a lot of work, but it's just the visible work. Maintainers do many other tasks to keep everything running smoothly. They keep the build scripts working, they update software dependencies, they track security reports, produce new releases, tackle spam in the discussion forums and issue trackers, they maintain domain name registrations, renew signing certificates, and many, many other chores. Open source software is free, but maintaining an open source project is far from free. Maintainers are vital to the continued success of a project, and the open source maintenance fee is a way to pay for the time and effort they spend sustaining a project. So now let me try to answer some of the questions to hopefully demonstrate how the maintenance fee is a simple, sensible solution for open source sustainability. First question: who pays the fee? That's easy. Anyone that uses open source project to generate revenue is required to pay the maintenance fee. If you use 5 projects, you pay 5 maintenance fees. And open source projects that require a maintenance fee are expected to pay the maintenance fee of projects that they depend on. In other words, if you're making money, you pay the fee for each project you use. Next question: how much is the fee? Each open source project is allowed to set its own price, but the minimum recommended amount is $10 per month. So if you depend on 5 projects, you can expect to pay at least $50 per month. It's not a lot. And let me be clear, it's not a lot because the maintenance fee is not a support contract. It does not guarantee that bugs you open will be fixed or that questions you ask will be answered. Maintainers will continue to fix the bugs that they think are important and answer the questions that they choose to answer. The maintenance fee exists to keep the project running. Okay, now how do you pay this fee? Well, for projects on GitHub, GitHub Sponsors is recommended because it's integrated into their whole billing infrastructure. That makes it easy for companies that are already paying for GitHub services to pay their maintenance fees. However, again, projects may choose to use whatever payment systems they feel best meets their needs. So check with each project. Next question: what if you don't want to pay the maintenance fee? That's not a problem. You can download the source code and use it without interacting with the project. You don't open issues, you don't ask questions, and you don't download releases. Again, for the visual learners, if the maintenance fee applies to you but you choose not to pay, imagine that a GitHub project looks like this. Okay, last question. Why introduce the open source maintenance fee now? The truth is, it's long overdue. While open source surged in popularity and became a vital part of most companies' software, we did very little to support the maintainers that kept everything working as volunteers. So we shouldn't be surprised that surveys of maintainers since 2020 show that over half considered giving up. And in an extreme case, in 2024, a maintainer on the edge of burnout was manipulated by attackers to sneak a backdoor into the Linux operating system. A solution is long overdue. And the open source maintenance fee is one way that maintainers can require that companies support them and their projects. So let's recap. The open source maintenance fee is a simple and sensible solution for open source sustainability. It is, first, easy to calculate. You enumerate the open source projects that you depend on, and you add up the fees they require. Very simple. Second, the cost is nominal. These are not huge support contracts, but monthly fees that you could fit onto a corporate credit card. Very sensible. Finally, the incentives are directly aligned. Consumers pay to get a properly maintained project. Maintainers are paid to maintain a project to keep consumers. It's a very tight feedback loop, which makes it sustainable. Simple, sensible, sustainable. That's the open source maintenance fee. So as you go out now to pay the maintenance fee for the projects that require them, I'm going to leave you with one last question. If you aren't paying a maintenance fee, what are you doing to support your maintainers?